Ray had a Rottweiler named Bruno, and for the first 2 years, he thought things were going well. Bruno listened. Bruno was calm. Bruno didn't cause trouble. What Ray didn't notice, not at first, was the thing that was quietly changing. Bruno had stopped coming to greet him at the door. He'd stopped bringing toys over. When Ray sat down on the couch in the evening, Bruno would settle on the other side of the room. Not out of disobedience, out of something quieter than that. It took Ray a long time to name it, because it didn't look like fear. It just looked like distance. And distance, with a dog, almost always means the same thing. Trust went somewhere, and you didn't notice it leave. Here's what most owners don't know. Trust with a dog isn't lost dramatically. There's rarely a single moment you can point to. It erodes through specific behaviors, repeated over time, that most owners are doing without any awareness of the cost. Not because they're careless, because no one ever told them what these things look like from the other side of the relationship. There are 6 of them, and at least one of them is probably happening in your house right now. The first one is the one that feels most justified in the moment. You come home and something is destroyed. A shoe, a cushion, the corner of the rug, and your dog is already doing the thing, flattened ears, crouched posture, eyes looking anywhere but at you. It looks exactly like guilt. So you respond to it like guilt. You correct them. Raise your voice. Make clear that this was not okay. And here is the part no one tells you. Your dog has no idea why any of this is happening. The research on this is unambiguous. Dogs cannot connect a correction to a behavior that happened more than a few seconds ago. The window in which their brain can associate a consequence with an action is measured in seconds, not minutes. Not the time it takes you to get home, process the scene, and respond. By the time you've done any of that, the window closed long ago. Alexandra Horowitz at Barnard College published a study in behavioral processes in 2009 that tested this directly. She found that the submissive behaviors owners interpret as guilt appear regardless of whether the dog actually did anything wrong. They're a response to the owner's emotional state in that moment, not evidence of the dog's awareness of what they did. Dogs who had done nothing showed the identical guilty look when their owner believed they had. Your dog isn't confessing. They're reading the tension in your body and responding to it. What the correction teaches isn't, don't destroy things. It's that your arrival, the moment they've been waiting for all day, is sometimes unpredictably dangerous. That's not a lesson about shoes, that's a lesson about you. The second mistake lives inside a category of training techniques that has been popular on television and in certain training books for decades. Alpha rolls, dominance downs, stare downs, grabbing by the jowls, kneeing in the chest. These methods are built on a theory of canine social structure that behavioral scientists have spent years attempting to correct, and the research on what they actually do to the relationship is among the clearest in the field. A study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science in 2009 by Heron, Schofer and Reisner at the University of Pennsylvania surveyed 140 dog owners who had sought help from a veterinary behaviorist. They asked what training methods had been used previously and what happened. The results were stark. Confrontational techniques, hitting or kicking, growling at the dog, forcing the dog onto its back, staring them down, shaking by the jowls. Each produced an aggressive response in at least 25% of the dogs on whom they were tried. The alpha roll alone triggered aggression in 31% of cases. A follow-up study by Vieira de Castro and colleagues in 2019 found that aversive training methods directly damaged the quality of the dog-owner bond. And a 2021 study in Scientific Reports went further, using cognitive bias testing to measure dogs' underlying emotional states. Dogs whose owners used 2 or more aversive methods showed significantly more pessimistic cognitive bias. Not just temporarily more stressed, but more negative as a measurable baseline. A darker view of the world, reflected in how they approached everything. The dog who is being physically dominated by the person who feeds them and sleeps beside them isn't well trained. They're appease trained, and appeasement isn't trust. It's what replaces trust when trust is no longer safe to offer. The third mistake is quieter, and almost everyone is doing some version of it. Does your dog know what the rules actually are? Not in principle in daily practice, in what is allowed today versus what was allowed yesterday. If the answer to that requires any qualification, it depends on your mood, it depends on who's home, it depends on whether you're tired, then your dog is living in inconsistency. An inconsistency, according to the behavioral research, is one of the most underestimated sources of anxiety in the dog-owner relationship. Research published in Applied Animal Behavior Science in 2010 by Arhant and colleagues found that greater inconsistency from owners was directly linked to increased aggressiveness and excitability in dogs. Not inconsistency about major things, inconsistency in the daily application of whatever rules the household operates on. Here's why this matters. Dogs are pattern recognition machines. Their sense of safety comes from being able to read the environment accurately and trust that it stays stable. A dog who has learned that jumping on the couch is sometimes fine and sometimes punished depending on variables they cannot decode is a dog whose nervous system stays slightly on edge all the time. They can't fully relax because the rules might shift. The most stable bond is the most predictable one. Not the most loving one, the most predictable one. A dog who knows exactly what to expect from you is a dog who can exhale in your presence. That exhale is trust made physical. The fourth mistake is one that plays out dozens of times a day in almost every household, and almost no one catches it. Your dog is communicating constantly. The yawn when tension rises, the lip lick when someone moves too fast, the whale eye when they're uncomfortable, the stillness before they decide to move away. These are calming signals, a documented vocabulary that dogs use to manage their stress and communicate their state to the creatures around them. Churid Rugas catalogued them comprehensively in her work on dog communication, which has informed veterinary behavioral practice for decades. And research reviewed in Evolutionary Human Sciences in 2022 confirmed that dogs actively use emotional information from human expressions to regulate their own behavior, which means they are sending emotional information through their signals and expecting it to function the same way in return. What happens in most homes is that these signals go unnoticed, or they get overridden. The dog shows discomfort at being hugged and the hug continues. The dog moves away from a new person and gets pulled back. The yawn during a training session is ignored and the session keeps going. Each of these moments is a message sent and not received, and the cumulative experience of communicating without being heard. For a social animal whose survival has always depended on being understood by the people around them, is a particular kind of loneliness. They stop expecting the channel between you to work both ways. And a relationship where communication only flows in one direction isn't a relationship. It's management. The fifth mistake is one that comes from a genuinely good place. Your dog is afraid of something. Thunder, strangers, or the vet's office, and you want to help. So you push them toward it. You hold them through it. You tell yourself that if they can just get past the initial reaction, they'll learn it's safe. This approach has a name in the behavioral literature: flooding. And the research on what it actually does is consistent. It doesn't extinguish fear in dogs. In a substantial number of cases, it makes it worse through a process called sensitization, where repeated forced exposure to a frightening stimulus, without the ability to escape, heightens reactivity rather than reducing it. But the secondary damage is the one that matters most for trust. Research on the secure base effect in dogs, published by Horn, Huber, and Range in PLOS ONE in 2013, found that dogs are more willing to approach challenging or frightening situations when their owner is present and available. The owner's presence enables courage, but that function depends entirely on the dog's sense that the owner is a source of safety, not a source of additional pressure. When you force your dog into the thing that frightens them, you don't just fail to resolve the fear, you become part of it. The appropriate approach is systematic desensitization, gradual, controlled exposure that stays below the fear threshold, paired with positive experiences, at a pace set by the dog's response, rather than by your schedule. It's slower, it requires patience, and it's the only method that actually works without taking something from the relationship that you may not get back. The sixth mistake is the hardest to avoid because it is the most human. Your dog is anxious, they won't settle, they're panting, pacing, unable to relax by any objective measure. You've been patient for 30 minutes, or 2 hours, or every single day for 6 months, and something in you starts to shift from compassion to a quiet, exhausted frustration. And when that happens, something in how you respond changes. Your voice gets shorter, you stop offering comfort and start issuing corrections. You push them away when they come to you because you need it to stop. A study published in Scientific Reports in 2019 by Sundman and colleagues found that dogs and their owners match each other's long-term cortisol levels, a physiological marker of chronic stress. Emotional states transfer between bonded individuals over time. A stressed owner produces a more stressed dog, and a dog who's anxious and then receives frustration or correction from their person has received exactly the wrong signal at the worst possible moment. They came to you because you were their safe place, and the response told them that the safe place isn't safe right now either, What actually works isn't excited reassurance that amplifies their state, and it isn't correction that adds aversion to distress. It's quiet, regulated, stable presence, calm enough that the dog's nervous system can take a cue from yours and find its way back down. Behavioral researchers call this co-regulation, a calmer nervous system helping a dysregulated one stabilize. It's slower than correction, and it's less satisfying in the moment. It's also the only thing that works without teaching your dog that their anxiety makes you someone to be afraid of. Ray figured it out eventually, not because someone told him what he was doing, because one evening Bruno walked past the couch, paused, and, for the first time in months, lay down next to him. Ray didn't move, didn't make a big deal of it, just let it happen. He said later, he didn't know how much he'd missed it until it came back. The thread that runs through all 6 of these mistakes is the same: delayed punishment, confrontational training, inconsistency, flooding, frustration, anxiety. Each one, in its own way, makes you unpredictable, unsafe, or unreachable to a creature who has staked their entire sense of security on your reliability. Dogs don't need perfect owners. They need predictable ones. Owners who can be read, who receive what's being sent, who return to calm after getting it wrong. That kind of owner builds a bond that can absorb mistakes without structural damage, because the dog knows, through enough repetitions, that you come back to being safe. That trust was given to you freely, before you had earned it. The only question is what you choose to do with it today. Which of these 6 did you recognize in yourself? You don't have to confess it, just name it in the comments. Most of the time, naming it is the thing that changes it.